It all started even before Chernobyl. In the secret city of Limansk, Soviet scientists were conducting experiments in mind control via antennas. We're talking about an over-the-horizon radar station, a huge structure for the early detection of nuclear missiles. On the outside, it's just iron and wires. Inside, it's something much darker. The side effect was dire. Residents had virtually no contact with outsiders, fanatically supported the government, and people in surrounding villages complained of constant headaches. After the Chernobyl accident, the city emptied out on its own. There was no evacuation. Limansk was simply forgotten. But it was here that what would later be called Psi radiation was first discovered. The exclusion zone became an ideal testing ground for scientists. There were no people, a nearby operating nuclear power plant as a source of energy, and a discovery already in the making. Thus, a complex of secret laboratories codenamed X was born. Their goals were ambitious: genetic experiments, the development of new weapons, and, most ambitiously, an attempt to establish contact with the noosphere, the Earth's information shell, which stores the mental images of all living beings. Scientists wanted to connect to the noosphere through Psi radiation and cleanse it of negative images that drive people to crime. The headquarters for all this work was Laboratory X8, hidden beneath the public utilities building in Pripyat. Laboratory X18 was located beneath an abandoned factory in the Dark Valley. Here, test subjects were exposed to psionic radiation, causing mutations. They started with rats and jerboas. The results confirmed the destructive effects on the brain. Then they turned to humans. Scientists succeeded in developing the ability to transmit thoughts remotely. But the price was enormous. At best, hallucinations. At worst, complete destruction of the nervous system. The results were sent to the X16 laboratory. There they went even further. They began experimenting with genes. Apparently, this is where poltergeists, Buerers, and pseudo-giants originated. The Kaimanov emitter, a psi field generator that mimics thought, but with an order of magnitude greater intensity, was also developed here. Laboratory X16 was located beneath an abandoned factory near Lake Yantar. Having studied controllers, creatures with the gift of telepathic control, scientists have grown a biological version of the emitter, a giant brain with intense mental activity. It was supposed to control living beings remotely, but instead of controlling them, the brain simply zombified everything around it and pulled them toward itself. They were never able to force it to carry out the necessary commands. Zombified people are those who have fallen under the control of controllers or psionic installations. The longer the exposure, the deeper the zombification. First, hearing is lost, phantoms appear, then the person degenerates and turns into a living corpse. The Kaimanov emitter was sent to X8, where they first assembled a scaled-down model of the Rainbow aggression suppressor, and then a full-size one. Rainbow was controlled from X10 lab, hidden in a bunker beneath the radar in the Red Forest. There, they conducted a demonstration experiment. A signal was sent to a research vessel in the Caribbean. The signal arrived distorted. Scientists concluded that the noosphere itself had made the edits, meaning it existed. This was their main conclusion, and their main mistake. In 1991, the USSR collapsed, and all secret projects were left without funding. Scientists were afraid to reveal their identities to the new authorities, but gradually they found private sponsors, and the work resumed. The laboratory created invisibility-enabled bloodsuckers and a two-headed chimera. A prototype Gauss cannon was developed, assembled at the Jupiter plant and tested in a nearby workshop. The project was shut down in 2004. A compact power source could not be found. The funding was provided through cunning schemes. For years, the director of the Agroprom Research Institute, Peter Danilovich, sent reports on sham experiments to the Ministry of Agriculture, received funds for them, and then forwarded them to Laboratory X18. I did this because I wanted to join a group called Awareness, an association of scientists studying the noosphere. In correspondence, colleagues simply referred to them as the group. The awareness experiments confirmed the two-way connection between the biosphere and all living organisms. Generators were erected near the Chernobyl nuclear power plant to connect to the noosphere, but the human mind proved too weak for direct contact. Then the 7 participants of awareness decided to unite themselves. They created a collective mind and connected together to the noosphere. To do this, they used autoclaves in which they literally merged into a single consciousness. The Osoznani group included Lebedev, Kalansha, and Suslov. Their goals were the most noble: to remove all negative images from the noosphere and make the world at least a little better. But on April 10, 2006, at 2:33 p.m., the experiment spiraled out of control. The noosphere erupted into the real world. From the outside, it looked like the entire nuclear fuel detonated at once. Most of the soldiers guarding the perimeter were killed instantly. Thus was the zone born. The mutants scattered throughout the area. The flask brain remained uncontrolled, and the scientists who orchestrated it all survived. The energy of the noosphere surged to the surface, altering the laws of physics. Anomalies appeared. Within 24 hours, the army had cordoned off the area. An attempt to seize the zone by force ended in failure. Without information about anomalies and mutants, almost all personnel perished. The zone continued to grow, absorbing military units. Strange objects, known as artifacts, were discovered in the anomalies. One of them was used to create a compact battery, and the Gauss gun theme was revived under the name Article 62. Having realized the scale of the disaster, Osoznani attempted to find a way to correct the error. This led to disagreements and a split. Some scientists, Lebedev, Suslov, and Kalansha, retreated to the swamps and founded S.T.A.L.K.E.R. The other part of awareness remained in the central laboratory. They learned to control the flow of noospheric energy, but it was so vast that they periodically had to dump the excess, hence the emissions. To conceal the truth about what happened, Realization has built a multi-layered defense system. The first line of defense is the PSI antennae, the most famous of which is Rainbow, which zombifies anyone who goes too far. The second line of defense is the illusory crystal inside the sarcophagus. Stalkers will call it the Monolith crystal or the wish fulfiller. In reality, it's a hologram. Hidden behind it is a control laboratory. The third line of defense was the STALKER program. Those who got too close to the zone's center were captured, partially memory wiped, and assigned a task. After the encoding, the agent had no memory of having undergone it. Through psionic radiation and image display, a person was transformed into an agent of awareness and given a stalker tattoo on their forearm. Their name was forgotten, their past a fog, but their intellect and combat skills were preserved. Over time, their memories could return. The agents were transported in trucks with coded drivers. Due to the zone's instability, more than half died during transport. Stalkers nicknamed these vehicles death trucks. The word stalker itself refers to those who are illegally within the zone. The history of stalking began even before the second accident, simply adventurers and marauders who were not properly protected. The stalkers' main goal became artifacts. The first was found by accident. The group made a fortune from it, and off it went. Stalkers poured into the zone. The first died in droves in the anomalies, but the survivors learned to probe the way with bolts. Gradually, an informal brotherhood formed. One of the first traders was Sidorovich. He settled near the newcomers' village at the cordon and over the years established connections with the military. He buys the swag that the same military had just seized from stalkers. Duty emerged in 2006. One of the military groups survived the disaster. After receiving a message from headquarters that they would not be evacuated, Commander Tashchenko decided to feign death and founded a group to defend the mainland from the zone's creatures. Dolgovtsi accidentally discovered archives containing information about Soviet mind control experiments and became the first to uncover the activities of Osoznani. Tashchenko subsequently found himself trapped in a spatial bubble, possibly forever. Freedom also appeared in 2006. It was founded by freelance stalkers Chekhov and Shchukin. Its ideology is a mix of hippies and anarchism. They believe the zone cannot be defeated and there's no point in hiding it from the world. They hate duty on principle. Monolith are zombified stalkers who underwent the awareness coding. They were programmed to build antennas out of garbage, through which they received signals and perceived them as divine revelation. Awareness equipped them with the most advanced weaponry. Meanwhile, a stalker nicknamed Strelok managed to bypass the STALKER and reach the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. Together with his comrades, Prizrak and S.T.A.L.K.E.R, he embarked on a full-scale trek to the sarcophagus. The group confirmed the existence of the Monolith crystal, found a suspiciously locked door with an electronic lock, and began preparing for their return. While attempting to leave, they were attacked by the Monolith. In the chaos, Strelok was separated from the group, ended up in the 4th power unit, and lost consciousness right in front of the wish granter. Fang suggested abandoning him. Ghost insisted. Together, they carried out their wounded comrade. Awareness launched a series of superbursts in pursuit, much more powerful than usual. The group took cover and carried Strelok to the doctor, who lived in the swamps. Meanwhile, the mercenary S.T.A.L.K.E.R, transporting scientists through the swamps, was caught in the same superflux. He survived. He was picked up by S.T.A.L.K.E.R sky fighters and brought back to base. Kalencha examined him and discovered severe damage to his nervous system. Each new surge would burn it out even more, ultimately resulting in either death or loss of personality. Lebedev offered S.T.A.L.K.E.R a deal: help find those who are trying to reach the zone's center and eliminate them. Otherwise, the emissions would continue, and S.T.A.L.K.E.R's nervous system wouldn't be able to cope. There wasn't much choice. It turned out that Strelok himself was preparing the next expedition to the center. S.T.A.L.K.E.R set out to intercept him. The route lay through the cordon, the swamps, the dump, the dark valley, Agroprom, and on to Yantar. Everywhere, S.T.A.L.K.E.R stumbled upon traces of Strelok and his comrades, and the mercenaries hunting them, hired by S.T.A.L.K.E.R Sky itself. On the bridge near Limansk, Strelok set up an ambush, blew up the bridge behind him, and disappeared. The only way forward is through Limansk, but it's controlled by renegades. Lebedev suggested contacting the Forester through a spatial anomaly deep in the Red Forest. With the help of the Forester and his compass artifact, S.T.A.L.K.E.R rescued the mercenaries trapped in the spatial bubble. In gratitude, they lowered the bridge to Limansk, and the S.T.A.L.K.E.R Sky detachment moved on to Pripyat. Through the dungeons, S.T.A.L.K.E.R reached the station, where Lebedev was waiting with an M1 rifle. With it, S.T.A.L.K.E.R penetrated the teleporters and destroyed Strelok's Isai defense. According to Lebedev, after this, the zone should have calmed down. But a new super emission occurred. Lebedev's fate is unknown. Most likely, he died. S.T.A.L.K.E.R woke up in an unfamiliar room and saw Strelok standing before him. Strelok hid from the emissions within the station's walls. Awareness hadn't yet managed to stop the Monolith Stalker-Earth's program, and due to an equipment failure, Strelok himself was coded. They began programming him to kill himself. He also received a Stalker tattoo on his forearm, becoming an agent of realization. The coding lasted about 8 months. The fate of S.T.A.L.K.E.R and most of the S.T.A.L.K.E.R Sky team is unknown. Most likely, they perished. During this time, the zone changed significantly. Freedom moved to the army warehouses. Duty settled in the Rostock plant. A bar opened there in early 2012, run by Barman, a former restaurateur from Ukraine who had become lame after an encounter with an anomaly. The bartender began gathering information about the zone's core, the emissions, and the scorcher. Sidorovich was doing the same and offered him a partnership, thus forming a trade coalition. At the end of April 2012, Strelok completes the encryption. He and the other agents are loaded into a truck at night and taken to the zone. But in the northern part of the cordon, an anomaly hits the truck. It bursts into flames, scattering its passengers across the area. In the morning, one survivor is found among the bodies. He is brought to Sidorovich. The shooter remembers neither his name nor his past. His PDA contains a single entry: Kill Fang. Sidorovich nicknames him Marked One because of his tattoo. Marked One begins carrying out Sidorovich's assignments and gradually follows Strelok's trail. That is, his own. At each stage, he stumbles upon fragments of his past. Caches, notes, memories that surface after the releases. Through the cordon, the dump, the dark valley, and Agroprom, there are traces everywhere. He learns about the X-18 and X-16 labs, the Brain Scorcher, and the Monolith crystal. At Yantar, scientists give him a psi helmet, which prevents him from going insane when passing through radiation. The bartender helps him obtain documents and coordinates. Scorcher, installation in Lab X-10, and enters Pripyat. The path to the zone's center is open for the first time. At the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, the military launches Operation Monolith, which fails completely. All units are lost inside the sarcophagus. The marked one, ignoring the unfolding battle, runs forward. The Monolith's voice beckons you to make a wish. If you give in, the marked one sees an illusion: wealth, power, immortality. But the crystal is simply a hologram installation. Wish signifies the complete absorption of the mind by the psi field. True ending. Marked 1 finds a door with an electronic lock, opens it with the decoder that Fang left in a hiding place on Pripyat, and ends up in the crystal control bunker. Having destroyed the installation's power supplies, he receives a communication session with a representative of Awareness. The representative explains everything via hologram: who the Marked One is, what happened, and that the program to destroy him was launched due to a simple error. Awareness offers to join. Together, they could keep the zone under control. The Marked One refuses. Awareness throws the last of its monoliths at him, but time and energy are running low. The Marked One reaches the bunker, sees all the realization participants in autoclaves and shoots them. He emerges and lies down on the grass. The zone hasn't disappeared. The energy of the noosphere continues to flow, only now without any control. Emissions begin almost daily. The road to Pripyat is cut off by anomalies. Individual monolith units break free from control and begin to think independently. Duty and Freedom reach Yanov's station and, after a skirmish, agree to make it neutral territory. The surviving Stalkers converge on Skadovsk and Yanov. The zone continues to exist. SBU Major Alexander Degtyarev, a native of Pripyat and an experienced former Stalker with enhanced resistance to psionic radiation, was deployed undercover into the zone. His mission: to determine why none of the dozens of helicopters returned. It turns out the whole problem is with outdated maps of anomaly fields. After emissions, they shift, and the helicopters were flying according to the old data, right into the anomalies. Degtyarev finds survivors, deals with the broken communications, destroys the psi installation in the kindergarten, and meets Strelok himself, who reached Pripyat through the catacombs. The shooter explains how to scan the zone immediately after the drop to plot a safe route for the helicopters. Command appoints Degtyarev as the operations lead. Along the way, Degtyarev repairs the Product 62 Gauss cannon found in the zone, deals with Jackal's mercenaries, destroys psi installations, and finds documents in Laboratory X8 that reveal the entire history of Awareness. The military, having scanned the zone, arrives. The escape route lies through the psi field of the Terror of Pripyat, a residual phenomenon that killed the scouts and one of the guards. The entire group breaks through to the helicopters and evacuates. Degtyarev is promoted to colonel and offered a staff position. He declines and asks to be sent back as an observer for the SBU. Laboratory materials are classified as special importance. Several prototypes are created based on the Product 62 documentation, but mass production is abandoned due to the ammunition's cost. However, rumors suggest that weapons development continues secretly.